Now, let's get to our 5 headlines. Okay, number one, journalists today are celebrating another journalist who asked a question. It's a little bit of scare quote overload, but basically it's all bullcrap is what I'm saying. But he asked a question and is being hailed and celebrated for this question. Listen to it here.
After 3.5 years, do you regret it all the lying you've done to the American people? On
all the what?
All the lying, all the dishonesties.
That who has done?
You have done. Tens of thousands.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the payroll tax.
So what we have here is what we've seen for, especially during the Trump. Now it's been this way for decades, really, but especially during the Trump era. This is journalism as performance. It's not journalism at all. It's a performance. He's performing for the camera. What other point would there be to that question? Well, you're asking the President of the United States a question. You're in a press conference. This is supposed to be a service that you're providing for the people so that we can get answers and that sort of thing. What kind of answer do you think you're going to get from that? No, what he was hoping for, in fact, this was just antagonism. He was hoping for some kind of angry response from Trump, and then he could mix it up and try to embarrass Trump and at the same time elevate himself. Of course, that's what this is all about. But I didn't go to journalism school, but admittedly, I don't think that's what journalism is actually supposed to be. Number two, David Blaine is back, the magician, performance artist, I guess that's what we call him. He's got a new stunt planned. Big deal. Hasn't done anything in 10 years, okay? What has he cooked up for us now, a decade later? He's been working on this, we're told, for a decade. What is it? What he's going to do is he's going to hold on to some balloons and float really high. That's the plan. Here's the preview. All right. Doesn't it strike you as a bit egotistical to call this stunt the Ascension? But the real problem is that a guy already did this. Remember, there was that guy that tied balloons to his lawn chair and floated up to like Mars or something, I believe, if I remember correctly. In fact, multiple people have done this. They made a Pixar movie about this, in fact, which is based on a true story. So to me, this is disappointing. 10 years, and this is what you come up with. I'm going to hold a balloon and float. Cool. I would love to do that too, but I just don't know if it quite is worth the hype. Number three, reading from the Daily Wire says, more than 25% of young Americans aged 18 to 24 have seriously considered killing themselves during the last month, according to the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, released on Thursday by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It says the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic has been associated with mental health challenges related to the morbidity and mortality caused by the disease and to mitigation activities, including the impact of physical distancing and stay-at-home orders. Symptoms of anxiety disorder and depressive disorder increased considerably in the United States during April to June of 2020 compared with the same period in 2019. Now, many of us warned that this was going to happen. You're not only taking away people's jobs and livelihood, you're isolating them, keeping them shut away from contact with other people. And so, of course, you're going to have, now, especially for someone who's already dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, mental illness, whatever it is, shutting them away. And on top of that, you're also bombarding them every single day with you're going to die, it's a disaster, it's the end of the world type of stuff. So it's not surprising. It's tragic and horrible. It's not surprising that it would have this effect. Remember, Trump brought this up months ago. And again, our truth-seeking, truth-finding journalists in the media mocked him for it and fact-checked him. Trump brought up months ago that this is going to lead to suicide and depression. And then we got all the fact check. Oh, no, it isn't, they said. Well, here we are. Although I do think we should also note, because it's important, that, and this is one of the reasons why the lockdowns and the effect on mental health has been so bad, is because we already live in a culture that is very depressed and much more suicidal than at other points in history. And it's a problem that goes down into very young ages. So this is part of a cultural trend, a long-standing cultural trend, which isn't to downplay it, but precisely the opposite, to say that that we've got a serious problem, and even when we get past the lockdown insanity, there's still going to be this problem. And we could talk about dissecting this, but one of the I think fundamental things feeding it is that we live in a culture that is at its core quite empty, and people have no sense of purpose, no sense of any greater reason for existence. It's a very nihilistic culture, and so that's what is going to lead in part to this as well. Number 4, Brett Favre, speaking to USA Today, shows us what courage truly looks like. This is Brett Favre. He says, and he was asked about the kneeling issue. He says, "I know from being in an NFL locker room for 20 years, regardless of race, background, money you grew up with, we were all brothers. It didn't matter. Guys got along great. Will that be the same with the kneeling scenario? I don't know. If one guy chooses to stand for his cause, another guy chooses to kneel for his cause, is one right and the other wrong? I don't believe so. We tend to be fixed on highs. I don't know what it's like to be black. It's not for me to say what's right and what's wrong. I don't know. We should all be treated. I do know we should all be treated equal. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be in America. There's no right answer. Other than that, the right answer is that we all get along. It seems like the more people try, the more damage is done." This is, what a courageous answer from Brett Favre. But all these athletes are proving they may be physically tough, but when it comes to moral courage, there's a real deficiency there. Your answer is, well, there's no right, there's no wrong. Here's all I'll say: we should all get along. I'll take a stand and say we should be getting along. Great insight from Brett Favre. Number 5, here's something that I just found out existed, proving the old adage that ignorance is bliss. Erotic weight gaining is a thing, unfortunately. The New York Post reports on the important story of a guy named Brian, nicknamed Gainer Bull, who has intentionally gained over 300 pounds. He eats 10,000 calories a day. One meal for him is like 3 combo meals, 5 or 6 sides. Now has a stomach the size of a small asteroid. And again, all of this is on purpose. Some kind of like fetish. And he apparently has legions of fans who watch him eat and just enjoy gazing upon his bulbous physique. One fan on Instagram, for example, left a comment saying, "You are one perfect, inflating, huge, handsome bear." By the way, the words inflating and handsome really don't go together. But here's my point. Do I have a point? I think I do. The point is that the internet should be destroyed. It is a cancer. It is a virus. And this is part of the problem. This guy, Brian, clearly mentally ill. His fans, clearly mentally ill. And mentally ill people have always existed. Presumably, fat fetishists have always existed in some capacity. But now with the internet, people like this are able to congregate. They're able to form communities where they encourage each other in their perversion and their degeneracy. And that's maybe the worst thing about the internet. And there's a lot of competition for that title, but perhaps the worst thing is what it has done to the concept of community. Because it used to be that your community was the neighborhood where you live, or you form a community as a church, or around some other sort of solid, healthy thing. Real world thing. Now a community just becomes a collection of people who enjoy the same thing. And often the thing they enjoy is repulsive and self-destructive and bizarre. So there's no edification, there's no growth. Well, there is growth, just not emotional and spiritual growth, is what I'm talking about. There's nothing positive to come of the community other than this mutual encouragement to continue being weirdos. And that's most of the community on the internet. That's really what it is. It's just a bunch of weirdos getting together and encouraging each other and telling each other that they're not really weirdos. It's someone has some freaky, gross thing they're into. They can just Google it, and boom, they find a whole collection of other lunatics just like them. Whereas in the past, before the internet, they would have hidden that part of themselves in shame, as they should. Maybe seek counseling for it. Either of those options are better than what we have now, because now you can it's certainly preferable or preferable to going on Instagram and getting your kicks by watching a morbidly obese man eat a burrito, which is where we are now. And by the way, this cheapening of the idea of community, it doesn't just apply to this fetish type of stuff. I mean, I think it applies even to people that say they're in a community because they all like the movie Star Wars or something like that, or communities of people that play video games. There's nothing wrong with playing video games or liking Star Wars. That's not really a community, though. That's just you enjoy the same thing. Great. That shouldn't be a community, because there's no shared value system there. The only shared experience is just this recreational thing you like doing. It's not really what a community is supposed to be. And we as humans do need community, but we're finding we are fulfilling that need in these kinds of communities around some one little thing that we like, even if it's a perfectly fine thing, rather than fulfilling that need through a real life community. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.